And Tim, I begin with you. What's the very latest on this seemingly never-ending situation between Kyrie and the Nets?
Well, the fact that there's drama surrounding Kyrie Irving really can't come as a shock to anybody because this has been the case for him for his entire career, right? At this point, it seems like there's one thing after another every day. And I think, for me, the way I look at this is, until there's some ink on the paper and we know where he's going to be, I think this is just going to be an evolving moment-by-moment, day-by-day situation. Because as we've seen with the Nets, even going back to the beginning of this season, this past season, Kyrie wasn't going to play. Then he was able to play in road games. Then he was able to play in all the games, right? Like, it just was sort of, this past season was sort of a microcosm of what his time in Brooklyn has been. And I think, again, as we go through this day by day, things are going to change and evolve all the time. But knowing where this is going to go right now, I think is a fool's errand.
Yeah, and Seth, the assumption here is that he's looking for max money over a series of years, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. Yeah, should they do it? You say no.
A max deal? No, because you got to have a guy that you can count on. You got to give a guy a max deal. You got to be able to count on him. You got to have an availability. You got to have a guy that you understand who he is, how he wins, and when he's gonna be available. And look, the one thing Kyrie Irving has proved, he's proved two things. One, when he plays, he can impact the game offensively in a way that very few guys can impact the game. Number two is you don't know when he's going to show up. And when you're trying to build a championship culture, if you're trying to build a championship culture, you've got to have guys you can count on. For Kyrie to be successful, they're going to need someone that has to have the ability and the strength to hold him accountable.
And that's the key right there. I want us to put that graphic back up in terms of games played versus games missed. 117 played, 130 missed in his Nets career. So, Zach, he's looking for that max deal. In your mind, should he get it?
Well, let's be clear about two things. Number one, he made All-NBA 2 seasons ago as the most available of the big three. In fairness to him, let's say that. And let's also say the reason he didn't play most of last season is now gone, the vaccine mandate. So things are set up for him to play 60, 65 games like a normal NBA star, some injuries here and there. But the max deal, everything I've heard, the max deal is not coming. The Nets are not going to be held hostage by the threat of Kyrie Irving and then Kevin Durant following him out the door. They appear ready to actually take some kind of stand here. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be a fair compromise offer somewhere, wherever that lands. And we'll see how that discussion evolves after Wednesday when, as you said, Kyrie can either opt in to that player option or opt out and become a free agent. And it's not just becoming a free agent, and that puts the Lakers and the whole league in play. Opting out sounds like a vehicle toward a sign and trade, but as Tim can tell you, that's really complicated because of cap issues. It's hard to sign and trade Kyrie Irving to some of these teams that are on his list because of their own cap situations and because of Brooklyn's. So this Wednesday deadline is going to be really interesting to see what he does. And if he opts in, if he only does so on the condition that the Nets trade him somewhere where he wants to go. But as of right now, I sense kind of stasis after the weekend where everyone kind of went their separate ways a bit. And I do think this is a precarious situation for the Nets. I don't think this is the kind of thing where it's actually kind of calm and the media is blowing this out of proportion. I do think there are scenarios where in a week he's gone and the Durant situation is wobbly.
Well, and I think to Zach's point, if you're looking at this from the Kyrie Irving side of things, right? 2 years ago, he played in 75% of the games, played 54 or 72 games, was an All-NBA player. Last year, when he did play, he was very good when he played. Now, obviously, he didn't play for certain reasons. Won't get into that. But he was healthy, right? And if he's healthy again next year, I think he would say, I'm probably going to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 65 games. And if you're Kyrie Irving and you're playing at that number of games, playing 75, 80% of the season, he is an All-NBA caliber player. So that's why I think from his side of things, he's going to say, I should get a max contract. And that's where the rub is. The Nets say, as you pointed out in that graphic earlier, he's played in less than half the games. Why do we want to give him a full max deal? The Nets are saying we need to have some stipulations that you're going to be on the court. And Kyrie's saying, I'm a max player. And there's the rub right there.
But when he was in Boston, he played a bunch of games, right? And his behavior was not condoning, assisting in helping them create a winning culture and a winning environment. Look, the guy's talent is ridiculous. And you can win a championship with him. Mm-hmm. All those things are great. But I think he's still got to be in an environment where there's a respect factor and accountability. And I'm not sure there will ever be a respect factor and accountability unless KD holds him accountable. Because he's got to be held. He was accountable to LeBron James. Whether he liked it or not, he was accountable to that championship run in Cleveland, and he made big plays. Where else has he been held accountable to?
Is KD that kind of guy,
I'm not
though,
even
to
sure he
hold him
was
accountable?
held accountable like that with the Cavs. Like, Kyrie's always been his own guy. He's always sort of done his
So that's
own
part of what
thing.
you get with Kyrie,
Yeah,
no
like,
matter where you
this
are.
is exactly
Okay.
what you sign up for when you have Kyrie Irving. Like, you sign up for drama. You sign up for all of this. Like, when the Nets signed him 3 years ago from the Celtics, they knew what they were getting, right? It wasn't like this is a big surprise that there's been drama around the Brooklyn Nets. Like, this is what everybody knew was coming, but it was the price of doing business to have Kevin Durant on your team. That was why they put themselves in this position. Not that it's like, oh man, I can't believe there's drama with the Nets because Kyrie's here. Like, this is what you sign up for.
I think this is a fascinating point. And Zach, I want to bring you in on this because I think so much of the narrative about Kyrie is we're asking him to maybe change. Don't forget, a couple years ago, he was out because of different issues surrounding Black Lives Matter and the situation in the country at the time. And then there was obviously the situation last year. But I think in this narrative, Zach, of everybody saying, well, is he going to change? Is he going to be this guy that we depend on in this way? What you're mentioning is this is the guy he is. So if this is the guy he is, why not pay him the max money and say, we're going to roll with who you are, Kyrie?
Well, because the Nets have had enough of it, I guess. And even if the situation is different, and I don't know sort of how he's been when he's been available and there, he's certainly played very well. And if they had faith that that would be the case for all these years afterwards with the vaccine mandate out the door, I think they would give him the max. But for whatever reason, they don't have faith in that. And you mentioned the hiatuses that he's taken. I mean, those are real things, and they break at the fabric of a team in real ways. They also haven't been that long. I think people talk about him like he was gone for 2 months or 3 months. They weren't that long. You can live with those if you know they're coming, if there's communication, if there's clarity. And I think that's where they've been lacking.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.